From Anglo-Saxonism, Israel is a terrorist state that has in the past committed terrorist acts against the English army. And today you Jews terrorize the Palestinians. You total scumbags. Everyone hates Israel. The only ones who love Israel are the Jews and the scumbag politicians who get paid by Jews to defend your evil asses, unquote. Yeah, Israel attacked the English army because the English army was preventing the Jews during the Holocaust from escaping into their own homeland, the land of Israel, because the British illegally occupied the land of Israel during the Holocaust. The British thought they had a right, this one island, thought they had a right to conquer half the world and colonize half the world. And one of the places they conquered illegally was the land of Israel, and occupied illegally was the land of Israel. And while they were in the land of Israel, during the Holocaust, while 6 million Jews were being murdered in the gas chambers and ovens of Auschwitz, which this Jew hater who's writing to us now, Anglo-Saxonism, probably approved of, while that was happening to 6 million Jews, those Jews all could have been saved. They all could have escaped into Israel. When they tried to escape and leave Europe and go into Israel, the English army, the British Navy, actually fired on Jewish ships of refugees trying to escape Auschwitz and trying to escape the Nazi death camps to go into their own homeland in Israel. The British deliberately closed the doors to the land of Israel, deliberately enabled the Germans to murder 6 million Jews, deliberately did it, and did everything they could to prevent the creation of a Jewish state. They made the Holocaust possible. So yes, there were Jewish heroes in the Irgun Tzvai Leumi and in Lehi, the two Jewish heroic underground groups that fought against the British Nazi occupation forces. God bless those Jewish freedom fighters. And England, by the way, which was once a great empire, after they went against the Jews and committed this atrocious crime against the Jewish people, look what God did to England now. Look at England now, and look at what England used to be. And it's just the beginning of the punishment. It's just the beginning of the punishment. I will bless them that bless thee and curse them that curse thee. And that is something that the English and every other empire that has done terrible things to the Jewish people learned the hard way. And now we go to from Mr. Rio Netro, who writes, was Istanbul not one of the main places for Zionists to meet? Wasn't Turkey one of the first countries to recognize Israel? Aren't other Turkic countries like Azerbaijan also friendly towards Israel? Did not hundreds of thousands of Jews flee to Turkey during World War II? Did Turks not save thousands of Jews in France? Unquote. First of all, Zionists didn't meet in Istanbul. I don't know if there were any Zionist meetings in Istanbul, because I know that Turkey ruled. The Ottoman Empire was ruling over the land of Israel until the end of World War I. And Turkey, Muslim Nazi Turkey, did everything they could to prevent the Jews from creating a Jewish state. They restricted Jewish immigration. They persecuted the Jews. They deliberately encouraged as many Arab Muslims as possible to move into the land of Israel so that the Arabs would become a majority in the land of Israel. They did everything possible to persecute, torture, and torment the Jews that were trying to live in the land of Israel. When they ruled the land of Israel before the British, up until World War I. And they did everything to hurt the creation of a Jewish state. And as far as Turkic countries and Muslim countries, if they're friendly toward Israel, they're not really friendly toward Israel. They want Jewish technology and Jewish trade and Jewish tourism. That's all they want. It's a completely one-sided relationship, and it should end immediately. And hundreds of thousands of Jews were not able to flee to Turkey during World War II. Turkey during World War II supported Hitler and the Nazis. Hundreds of thousands of Jews were not allowed to flee. There were never hundreds of thousands of Jews in Turkey at any time in history. That's just a complete, I don't know where you get that from. And did Turks not save thousands of Jews in France? I don't know what period, what are you referring to? I don't know what you're referring to, but Turkey today is a nation that is working to destroy Israel, and that is completely hostile to Israel, and it is a nation that Jews should be boycotting. And now we go to Compantino, who writes, and I quote, the Ashkenazim Jews, or some of them, are fakes and only became Jewish to exploit or abuse the religion like they have done before. They are Zionists and only Zionists. The only reason everyone refers to them as Jews is because they pretend to be Jews, so the entire Jewish religion takes the fall for their manipulation of the Gentiles. So I am going to make it very clear, they are not real Jews. They use the Jewish religion people as a scapegoat, unquote. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay? You're defining who a Jew is. You don't know the first thing about Judaism or what the Jewish people are or Jewish history. You don't know. You have no idea. What you're talking is so absurd and so illogical and so insane. It doesn't make any sense. I don't even know what you're talking about. The Zionists. Zionism means the existence of a Jewish homeland, a Jewish state. You're against the Zionists. You're against the right of the Jewish people to have their own homeland. Then you're a Nazi. And you're daring to question the Jewishness. The Ashkenazim are the majority of the Jewish people in the world today. You're saying the majority of the Jewish people in the world today are not Jewish? You're telling us who is Jewish and who isn't? You're the one who decides who is Jewish and who isn't? You don't know the first thing about Judaism. You don't know the first thing about the Jewish people or Jewish history. You're a complete ignoramus. You're telling the Jewish people who's Jewish and who isn't? I mean, and what you write is so insane, and so I don't even know what you're referring to. Make the Jews a scapegoat. You yourself are a Nazi anti-Semite. So what are you talking about making the Jews a scapegoat? That's something that you want to do. And now we go to 88 Matija. Okay, 88, by the way, being the symbol of the Nazi SS. So this is a Nazi writing here. And this Nazi piece of garbage writes, and I quote, "The Jews were only about 22% of the total Auschwitz population, while at Dachau, the Jews were only 12% of the population. The Germans put the Jews who still remained behind inside Central Europe into those dissident camps to protect their war effort from terrorism, just the same as when the U.S. rounded up all of the Japanese and put them into camps. Subsequently, the Jews inside America were 90% of the spies who were tried and convicted during the long Cold War with the Soviet Union," unquote. First of all, 90% of the people in Auschwitz were Jews. At least. And the same thing in Dachau and the other death, and most of the other death camps. So what you're saying is baloney. These were dissident camps? Dissident camps? You mean they murdered 1.5 million Jewish children and babies because they were dissidents? Hitler was just trying to prevent the Jews from committing acts of terrorism? The fact is, and not only that, you're a Nazi. You agree with Hitler and the Nazis. You have the number 88, which was the number that the Nazi SS used, so you are a Nazi. Now, as far as 90% of the spies in America were tried and convicted during the Cold War, that's complete baloney. I mean, that's complete baloney. The 95%, at least 95% of the spies that have been convicted during the Cold War were not Jewish, but that's besides the point. You're talking about the Cold War? If not for the Jews, there would have been no Cold War because America would never have been a superpower. The Jews invented the atomic bomb. The Jews gave America the technological superiority. The Jews were the ones that gave America the Hollywood of the 30s and 40s and 50s that made America the most popular cultural phenomenon throughout the world. The Jews conquered the hearts and souls of the people throughout the world with Hollywood, with the good Hollywood of the 30s, 40s, and 50s. The Hollywood of the 30s, 40s, and 50s with those good, inspiring old movies that we used to see. The old movies were good movies in Hollywood. Now Hollywood is filth. And by the way, now Hollywood is mostly non-Jewish. But the old Hollywood of the 30s, 40s, and 50s was Jewish. And that Hollywood was a great Hollywood, an inspiring Hollywood with beautiful movies. And those movies convinced the world that the American way of life and freedom and all the American concepts were good concepts. That's why America won World War II. That's why America eventually defeated the Soviet Union. Without the Jews, none of that would have ever happened. And the Jews were the leading forces behind the downfall of the Soviet Union. The Jews were the brains in the Soviet Union, and they were all the dissidents. They were all the brave dissidents in the Soviet Union. If not for the Jews, America would have been a backwater country. America became a technological giant because of Jewish scientists and Jewish brains and Jewish engineers. Jews came to this country and invented the things that gave America the technological edge that made America a great country. That's a fact. That's a fact of life. And the Jews also, by the way, were most of the brains behind Soviet inventions too. And then the Nazis, like this piece of filth that's writing right now, say that the Jews were the Untermenschen, they were the inferior race. They were the inferior race? Such a tiny people accomplished so much? They're God's chosen people. And God will burn you in hell, you filthy Nazi swine. They are God's chosen people. That's why such a small people has such an incredible impact. Just as the Bible says, You see with your own eyes. It is so obvious that everything the Bible says is true about the Jews. Look at them. Look at their impact upon the world. It is unbelievable. Where do you see a people that has this type of impact on the world? Where do you see a people that 2,000 years later returns to their homeland? They were expelled by the Romans 2,000 years ago and return 2,000 years later to their homeland, just as it says in the Bible, and defeat their enemies when they're outnumbered 100-1 in 6-day wars. And there are still people that don't realize that the Bible is true and that the Jews are God's chosen people. Anyone that doesn't believe in the Bible and that doesn't understand that you have to bless the Jews to be blessed, and if you curse the Jews, you're going to be cursed. Anyone that doesn't understand that is not an atheist, but blind.
La